What up, Hype Squad? It's your boy Lucrecio. And if you're new, welcome to Exceed the Hype. To join the Hype Squad, all you gotta do is click subscribe, and if you enjoy the content, leave a like and a comment, alright? So, today's video is about the MVP race in the NBA. Now, I know it's early in the season. There's still a whole lot of basketball to be played before we start talking about MVP trophies and whatnot. But, even though it's early in the season, the MVP race is kind of starting to take form this early in the season. There's guys like Kyrie Irving being talked about in the MVP conversation. There's guys like Greek Freak, Antetokounmpo, who's being talked about in the MVP conversation. There's people like James Harden, who's been talked about in the MVP conversation for the last 3 years. Has been a runner-up over and over and over. He's being talked about heavily. He's having a career season. And you have somebody like Lebron James, 15 seasons in, and he's still in the MVP conversation. He's been in the conversation for like a decade plus. So, with that being the case, who's going to be the MVP? All right. So we have Kyrie Irving. Okay. Currently, he's averaging 24 points per game, 3 rebounds, 4.8 assists. He's averaging 49.6% from the field, and he's getting 38% from 3 this year. All right, so the numbers are a little bit down from last year when he played. Yeah, that's right. When he played with LeBron James, the guy who was holding him back, he actually had slightly better numbers last year. Not much better, but slightly better numbers last year. However, his MVP candidacy is legit if you compare his numbers with Steph Curry's from 2015. If you remember, 2015, the Golden State Warriors won 67 games in the Western Conference. Steph Curry won the MVP, and he had numbers like 23.8 points per game. Yes, that's correct with Steph Curry. It wasn't until the next year that he averaged 30. He had 4.3 assists, and the 4.3 rebounds, and he had 7.7 assists. That's the big difference between the two. 7.7 assists is legit from somebody who scores in that volume. And then he also shot the ball at 48.7% and a whopping 44.3% from 3. That's Curry in 2015. We all remember how Curry was, and then we remember how he got even better the next year. All right. But Kyrie Irving's numbers are very similar to those numbers of Steph Curry in 2015. If the Boston Celtics, had the number 1 seed throughout, had the best record in the NBA, it's hard to argue against Kyrie Irving, having with that kind of season, basically. So Kyrie Irving is a legit contender, all right? Greek Freak, I'm throwing his name in it because you have to throw his name in it. However, when it comes to Greek Freak, they're not going to win enough games, so it's going to be very, very tough for a Greek Freak to come away with an MVP trophy. This is not a Russell Westbrook situation where you average like a triple-double or whatever, and as a result, you get an MVP trophy. It's not going to work like that with Greek Freak. He's not going to get a triple-double. He's not going to get the MVP. He's not going to win enough games in the Eastern Conference. It's just not going to work out. But his name is in the MVP conversations nonetheless. So you got to respect Greek Freak from that. He's having an amazing season. He's just an absolute monster out there. He can do everything. It's just amazing to watch Greek Freak play. All right. So next up is James Harden. Now, he's having a monster season this year. He got a little help, ball handling from Chris Paul. Chris Paul has come over from the Clippers. There was a lot of talk about how they weren't going to be able to coexist. It looks like they're coexisting fine. Their minutes are being staggered. They don't spend most of the game on the floor together. However, there's always a floor general on the floor at all times. And even when in their minutes together, they've been, playing well enough together. And I think they're just going to continue to grow together more and more and more. So they're going to be something to contend with out west. James Harden is interesting though, because you can make a case that he's been snubbed 3 seasons in a row. The year that Steph Curry, remember I just talked about Steph Curry winning in 2015? And when you think about it, James Harden has been snubbed 3 years in a row. Or at least you can make a case that James Harden has been snubbed 3 years in a row. The year when Steph Curry won it, 2015, James Harden had better numbers. A lot of people think Steph Curry had weak numbers for an MVP that year. The next year, it's hard to really make a case that he was snubbed that year, because Steph Curry was averaging 30 points per game and the Warriors won 73 games, breaking the Bulls' all-time record. Goodness. It's hard to make a case, but he was the runner-up that year. Or he finished near the top that year. And then last year, the Thunder obviously had a worse record than the Houston Rockets. Even though the Rockets didn't have the best record in the league, but they had a better record than the Thunder. The two main candidates for MVP were Russell Westbrook and James Harden. James Harden lost to Russell Westbrook because obviously Russell Westbrook did something historical, averaging a triple-double. So you can make a case that he got snubbed again because he had similar numbers and his team had a better record. So with that being the case, the narrative kind of favors him like, oh, James Harden finally gets his MVP trophy. But to me, in order for him to win this year, they have to finish first in the Western Conference. They have to beat Golden State. Because the Golden State still finishes first. I feel like if Cleveland is in the picture, it'll go towards the person I'm going to talk about next. But let's look at James Harden for a second. 32.3 points per game, 5.3 rebounds per game, 9.2 assists a game. Seriously, talk about doing it all out there on the court. He's shooting 46% from the field and he's shooting 40.6% from the three-point line. That is such an amazing season. So my thing is, if the Rockets end up with the first seed in the Western Conference, the best overall record likely, in all likelihood, in the NBA, James Harden finally gets the trophy that has eluded him in his career up to this point, and the kind of validation or whatever you want to call it that goes along with it. So we'll see if that chase is complete this year. But the last guy I want to talk about on this video, I feel like the narrative favors him the most out of everybody. Out of everybody on this list, the narrative favors LeBron James more than anybody. Why? He will be the first player to win it this late in his career. Just another notch on his belt, on his GOAT belt that the whole world is building for him. He's the only player who anyone dares to imply could be better than Michael Jordan. He's the only player. People loved Kobe here and there. Nobody ever dared say that. People loved this person, that person, this person. LeBron is the only one that anybody feels the least bit of comfort putting in that, upper echelon category or whatever. The Cavs, if the Cavs are number one seed in the East and Houston doesn't finish as number one in the West with a better record, I really feel like LeBron James comes home with his fifth MVP trophy this year, which will be an amazing story. And look at how he's doing it. 28.3 points per game, 8.3 rebounds per game, 8.7 assists per game, 56.7% from the field. People, 56%. That's what he's averaging for the season. And then a 41.7%, almost 42% from 3 points land for somebody who's about 6'9", playing a point guard at the small forward position, who's also 33 years old in his 15th season. I feel like the MVP narrative will favor LeBron James over the most, but it just depends on the team's success. Because the individual numbers are there. The individual numbers are there for all these guys. So that team success is going to be the factor that really drives it home. And the way the Cavs are playing, I feel like in the next 15, 20 games, they're going to hawk down the Boston Celtics and take over the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. And I wouldn't be surprised because one thing you have to remember, let's think back to historical LeBron teams. It wasn't until this year where this stretch where he came back to Cleveland where he was winning in the low 50s. LeBron had seasons where he won 66 games with pretty bad teams talent-wise if you really think about it. If you compare him to what he played with after. You had teams that won like 61 games. LeBron James, if he has a team that's worthy, they're going to win in the 60s. And if they win in the 60s, that with Golden State not being quite the Golden State we've seen in prior years, I feel like there's a chance they can get in the 60s. And if they get that, if they have a chance at the number 1 seed in the league, I think we're going to be looking at LeBron getting that 5th MVP trophy. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Leave it down in the comment section below. As always, if you enjoyed this content, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, a like down below. Follow me, Exceed the Hype, on Twitter.com. And as always, to join the Hype Squad, all you got to do is click the subscribe button. All right, see you next time.